Thank you, everyone. It's great to see everyone here. I suppose we should start by way of introductions. So, Keira?
Hello, everybody. My name is Ciara McCarthy. I'm the Director of Product Delivery at Proximie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Carter. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Proximie.
So why don't we start by telling everyone what Proximie is. Tell us a bit about Proximie and what we do.
To understand Proximie, you sort of have to start with surgery. And we mean surgery, we've got the OR up there, it's the US English. We mean it as a setting that you would have any kind of procedure. So something that you would usually book in, might be trauma, but you'd usually book in, you'd go in, there'd be a clinician there, they would be doing something physical to your body, and then hopefully you go home again fixed. And I think we both started around about the same time at Proximie, so within a couple of months ago of each other, and that was about 5 years ago. My entire career had been really in financial markets up to that point, and one of the things that I learned when our founder and CEO, Nadine, who's a practicing plastic surgeon here in London, she said, right, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to go to an OR, you've got to see what surgery looks like. And it's really physical. I was really surprised at how manual the whole thing was. It really is, particularly in plastics or orthopedics, there's a lot of sawing and drilling and all the things you really don't want to think about. And it's also a really analog environment. So there's really no digital technology there. There's machines which will do things like monitor the patient, but there's no real digitization at all. And when we started speaking, she was talking a lot about her mission, and that's to improve access to surgery. Because it doesn't really matter where you are in the world, access to surgery is constrained. So here in the UK, people will be familiar with waiting lists, waiting times. It doesn't matter what the funding model is, it's pretty much the same everywhere. And Proximie's mission is to use technology to improve access to surgery. And we started out actually as a telepresence platform for surgeons, so we're one of the most compliant platforms, even before COVID, where surgeons could call each other, they could get real, live, very high quality images, even in really bandwidth-constrained settings, and they could help each other out. And we started out actually with heart operations, heart valve operations, but I know, Keira, you've been really close to some of our global health equity work as well.
Yes, so we're all about providing access to healthcare. In the UK, as Richard said, that's all about waiting lists. Everyone knows about the NHS and the waiting lists and speeding up our opportunity time, as we call it, in our operating rooms. But we do a lot of work with the Global South, and we start thinking about how access to healthcare, not just in the UK or not just in the developed world, but also in the developing world, and how we can provide all of the wonderful doctors that work for the NHS, our CEO included, how they can really share their knowledge, share their experience to provide safe surgery to all, which is really at the heart of our mission and why we do what we do. It will become very clear when we show you our video now. But yeah, we're all about access to surgery and making sure that we are providing a platform that gives people that safe access to surgery.
So just before we start the video, what we do here in the UK is focus less on surgeon training. We still do that, it's still an important part of our business. But we're really focused on what goes on around the OR. So we use technology to help around the medicine. Once you've got the medicine in place, healthcare is actually a communications and logistics problem. It's where's the patient, where's the instruments, how is the flow going to work? And what we do is provide computer vision and AI to help agentically move things along in a healthcare setting. I think we've got a video now that will give a little bit more color to it.
I'm a practicing surgeon, and I've spent many, many years in operating rooms around the world. When we look at healthcare workers today, at least 30 to 40% of their time is used for documentation. Where can we reduce that burden of administration? Where can we automate? What we do at Proximie is we deploy software to bring real-time insights to our healthcare workers on the front line. Through technology, through AI, through machine learning, to enable them to leverage and maximize the use of the operating room to bring care to as many patients as possible. One of our products is about bringing live data to our customers, bringing what is happening in the operating room in real time to our customers so they can really understand and grasp the context that we're working in and how to make changes and influences that might improve the way we deliver care to patients. Being able to then take that live dashboard and stick it into the Miro AI tools with new data sets, and within seconds it sort of spins out for us new potential views, new dashboards, new contextual elements within the data has been fascinating. And I think we're just in the beginning of what we can do with it. And we're very, very excited and are already using and prototyping these new AI tools that are helping us think about our own prototyping process, how we do that quicker and more effectively, but also demonstrate to customers what is possible. Because it's much easier to show a customer what the potential is than to talk to them about it. And Miro is helping us do that in a really fast and scalable way.
Cool, so we've got, I guess, a setup now which is in an OR. We have a number of computer vision sensors, so they have visible light, infrared light, and active depth sensing, and they sense what's going on. They send it to the cloud for processing, and that cloud then infers what's happening in the OR and matches it with the health system's own information to tell them whether they're running ahead or behind plans. So what you saw there in the video was a kind of if you imagine Outlook as rows, it just tells you where you are in your day against each OR. We've got lots of other things which we'll go through as we talk, but I think the starting point is, Keira, how do we get going in moving from a telepresence platform for surgeons to an ambient computer vision model for health logistics?
So it probably started about 2 years ago. As you saw, we have a very ambitious CEO who is a practicing surgeon. We have a large engineering team, so we thought, you know, what's the problem here? Let's get going. One of the main things, I sit in the intersection of that, and one of the things that we started with very, very simply was Nadine's vision of what she wanted to do, access to care. That's our whole mission, and every day we talk about that in work. That access to care was really at the core of what she wanted to bring into the healthcare market. We started with, okay, what are the must-haves that this product needs to do? It needs to provide real-time data, to which the engineer said, well, you know, I can give it in 2 minutes, I can give it in 3 minutes, that kind of thing. No, it has to be real time. It has to be contextual. So the sensors that we put into the operating rooms are capturing frames every 10 seconds of what is happening within the room. That is then going off to our AI models and hopefully providing accurate data. But the contextual part is the electronic health records that we get from the hospital, the procedure type, the name, the case duration. All that golden nugget information is being layered with the sensor information to give the users the contextual information that they need to see. It has to be real time, it has to provide contextual data, and it has to be accurate. You talk about providing AI and all these things that we've spoken about today in the other rooms. We work in healthcare, there's literally no room for error. So having the accuracy of the data was super important. So we started with a literal whiteboard of the things that we want this product to do. We have remote engineering teams. We have 45 developers. None of them have all been in the same room, and they've worked together for a number of years. So everyone is on Zoom. You've got a CEO who is an operating surgeon, and you've got this amazing idea. How do we bring that all together? I think the main thing that we did 18 months ago, when I go back to the very beginning of bringing that to life, was thinking, how are we going to get this tested as quickly as possible? How are we going to prove that we can actually do this in a healthcare setting? And being really honest, we brought our first hardware into an operating room. We realized within a number of days it was not going to work. We failed really fast, and we switched hardware to a different sensor, a different camera that could capture the images that we wanted. That failing fast and iterating was key. We have a number of competitors that are moving super quick in the market, who are really well funded. Everybody wants to provide access to healthcare. Everybody is moving really fast. That fast failure really, at the beginning, shaped the product into what it is today. And yeah, we have a number of engineers that really had some critical thinking around what real life scenarios the product had to work for, which is where we started 2 years ago, which is what you see today.
So we started with a literal whiteboard. I think that lasted maybe less than a day. Yeah. We tried taking photos of it. We've got a really good photo of the very first whiteboard, and most of what you see on it is my reflection of me taking the photo of the whiteboard. But we moved pretty quickly from there to to trying to collaborate, genuinely collaborate. And I think a lot of the keynote was around how how we collaborate effectively without it become competitive. And we started, I guess, with some of the canvases. Can you talk us through a little bit around how that early ideation process worked?
Yeah, I'll just play this video behind. So as I said, we have quite a large engineering team with testers and product people and a lot of front-end, back-end engineers. How do we make sure that those people are coding the right thing at the right time? I think that was the really tricky part. And the prioritization of what we wanted the product to be versus what commercial want, the market is moving really fast, what the product team want, coupled with all of this compliance and legal obligations that we have to make this product actually legal in the marketplace because we're dealing with healthcare data. The prioritization was key for that. And using tools like Miro at the very beginning in its basic form, 18 months ago, Miro was a very different product than it is today. Using it in its basic form for data flows. Okay, we capture the data in the OR. Where is that data going? Where does it need to go? It needs to go to the AI vision model. It needs to go into our AWS, all the S3 buckets, et cetera, et cetera. It needs to go all the way through those flows to ultimately end up on the UI. So a user is seeing that data in real time. So those data flows were super important, the first thing that we started with, and kind of the back-end engineering technical architecture diagrams as to how that was going to work. Then you couple that with all the good stuff like customer journeys, user flows, what kind of users are actually interacting with this product. All of that was done. The only way that we could do that was on Miro, and using that to share and collaborate with the teams.
I think that was also the first time that we actually started to use Miro outside engineering. So before that, Miro, I think, was kind of quite an engineering-centered tool, but we started to expand out a little bit. How did prioritization work before this? Do you remember?
I think it was just loudest voice.
Loudest voice, bit competitive, and if you didn't like the answer that you got, you came and asked Richard or Keira afterwards, and they might give you the answer you wanted. But one of the things I think we found was, or at least you found, was that it gave a bit more transparency to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key tools we use is the anonymous tool on Miro. So we have the CEO making comments, we have engineering making comments, we have product, commercial, marketing. Everybody is making comments, and the visibility that creates a space where there's no room for argument. Everybody knows exactly why these features are being prioritized, whether it's revenue, whether it's competitors, whether it's I've sold a product to a contract that I now need to fulfill, whether engineering need to do technical debt, whatever it may be. There is no room for your opinion. It is all based on fact, which is something that I'm sure every startup has gone through this. It's really hard to know which direction to go in, and it's really hard to know, the market is moving really fast. Do I try and keep up with competitors, and do I invest in the speed of that? Or do I go and I really hone in on my users, and I say, what problem am I trying to solve for these users? There's no right or wrong answer there, and you probably need to do a bit of both. But we decided to go on the user route. And going down that user route, lots of user interviews, lots of capturing feedback, lots of flows, going through the things that we were really hearing from customers. And if you think about that in a hospital setting, if you are in a busy traffic area of a hospital, think you're at the nurse's station, you're at the coffee station, whatever it needs to be, when I'm in that area, what is the information that I need to see? I need to see which OR is free, what doctor is becoming available, and what patient is going into the next room. Right now, I don't know if you guys have been NHS patients recently, it's all paper. You're being shown where to go, you might have a wristband with your name on it, you are being physically ticked off a list. Whereas time and time again from our users that are frontline clinical staff, that is the information that they need to see. They're walking through a corridor and they need to know which operating room is free. They've got somebody down in A&E that needs to be brought up immediately for surgery. Right now they are phoning each other, which feels very 1980s. How do I get that information into the hands of those users? And from the user interviews that we did and from the user feedback that we did, they want to know where to go throughout their workday, but more importantly, they want to know that they're going to finish their shift on time. Yeah. Right now, that visibility that we create, they can see this operating room is going to finish at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever it may be. I'm going to show the next version of this is the live view data product that we show in those high traffic areas. So you can see very clearly what's happening in each of the operating rooms on that ward. You can also switch ward and switch contextual views, and you can see missed opportunity times. So when we speak about UK-specific hospitals, NHS hospitals, it's all about getting the waiting list down and providing that access of care. So just to go back to what I was saying around user interviews, capturing that feedback of clinicians, they are on the front line, not the people in offices who are, designing products that they think will solve the problem. It's really getting in front of those clinicians and seeing what information they want to see. So we went down the user route, as I said, and did a lot of user interviews around also space, just on the UI of this, the space is quite limited. So you imagine, I need to get the information that I need. I'm looking at this in the first 5 to 10 seconds. We have to do a lot of prioritization around what we show on the front end as well. But I can talk about that later.
Yeah,
as well.
and I think one of the things we found fairly early on was the moment you move to something that's digital, because a lot of this is either phone call or whiteboards, you can present different lenses for different users. So it sounds really straightforward, but we've got an anonymized view where we don't show any patient data for public areas. So as long as you know when you're scheduled to, or when your loved one is scheduled to be operated on, you can look at it and you can see where you are in the day. And obviously clinicians that are in more private areas or in the ORs themselves where the patient would usually be anesthetized get much, much fuller views. The way that's solved today, if you don't have an electronic system, is it's solved with a whiteboard, and you have to just write the patient's initials and hope that that gives those that know enough and those that don't know no way of determining what the patient's identity is. So some of those things came through as well.
So I know that you are an externally facing CTO, and you do quite a lot of sales and commercial-led conversations. How does tools like Miro or kind of collaboration tools help you in those technically hard conversations, but also on the compliance and the regulatory side as well? So
one of the things that I found sort of fairly early on, actually it was a lot of my career in investment banking as well, capital markets, was you would take kind of whiteboards, drawings, you'd photograph them, probably better than more competently that I would, and then you would have to transcribe them. And even if you did that in a different way, even if you started out trying to do it in a way that worked electronically, you'd invariably have to find a different presentation for regulatory and compliance materials. One of the things that we found with Miro is that it's actually possible to get on one canvas, not always the same frame, but certainly on one canvas, views of the same material that work for different audiences. So even though we are not a medical device, we're a workflow and operations device, we still have to produce what's called instructions for use, which is the manual that no one reads. It's a compliance requirement that we produce it. If we don't produce it, it's our problem. If you don't read it, it's your problem. So we have to produce all of that. I'm also very involved in our cybersecurity. So as you can imagine, just popping in and saying, I'd love to put these computer vision sensors in one of your most sensitive environments and start sending that to the cloud. Is that okay? The answer is not usually a straightforward yes, knock yourself out. There's usually a bit of a process to go through. And there are very clear expectations as to what sort of documentation you have to present. So for example, for all of our threat modeling, we use Miro quite extensively because it already had the components that we could reason about with a methodology that we happen to use called Stride. So that was really useful. Now you mentioned fairly early on, or a little bit earlier, that Miro, when we started, isn't the tool that it is today. So from the sort of product and delivery side, what have been the advances over the course of the last 2 years that have really started to help us think about delivery?
So yeah, I mean, when we started, it was very much data flows, as I mentioned, and kind of using the product in its basic form. And today we use it very, very differently. So I'll give an internal example and an external example. So internally, as I mentioned before, it's a really competitive marketplace that we're working in. Healthcare, for innovation for healthcare, is a really well-funded space. Our competitors are moving very, very fast, and there's kind of a race to the top, if you like. I suppose there is in every industry, but it's making sure that healthcare is probably one of the last places that innovation has really kind of broken through. And who's going to win that race? Who's going to break the back of it and make sure that we get into those healthcare spaces? So because of that, we have competitors globally who are moving extremely fast. And internally, it's quite hard for us on the product side to prioritize, as I mentioned, do we go down the market, the competitor route, do we go down the user route? And competitors are moving so fast, it creates that anxiety of everyone is having these features and we don't have them. Let's get them into development right away, and that decision-making process. So one of the things that we do is we create competitor battle cards, which is a really simple way of using the new Miro tools. So we feed all of the connectors that were spoken about earlier in a couple of the presentations. We can feed it all of the information around our competitors, and it will give really simple battle cards of what the different competitors are doing, what area of the market they are going after. Is that the same area of the market we're going after? Not necessarily, because it is such a huge space. What feature sets do they have? Is it just a race to the top of a feature list? Not necessarily. How are they commercializing their product? Is it subscription-based? Is it user-based? Is it based on hospitals? It's all different. It's all not necessarily the same thing. So the contextual information that we can give the Miro tools can really help us in digesting that competitor information. And we use it for battle cards, as I said. So our product teams and our commercial and marketing teams have all access to that information. So they can say they know exactly what, I won't name them, but they know exactly what our competitors are doing. And we can compare ourselves and, again, make really quick prioritization calls based on that information. It will take less than a few minutes to create those based on the connectors that we now have. And then externally, so as I mentioned, this is our externally facing real-time product. We also have an externally facing historic product that provides historic data to hospital users. So I can say yesterday you had an opportunity time of 2 hours that you didn't use, whatever it may be. Last week, this is the performance metrics of your hospital ward. And we started using the Miro tools to provide different contextual views. So if I'm a nurse, or I'm a scrub technician, or I'm a doctor, I'm an operational manager, there's so many different hats that you can wear in a hospital. And because of that, you need to see the data in slightly different variations. So we can feed the Miro AI tools the electronic health record data, which is all of the personal information of the patient, coupled with our sensor data, so we can say the doors opened at this time, this is the time the operation began, we have that timestamp. Provide all of that contextual information to the Miro AI tools, and it will give you a dashboard that we didn't actually think of in a slightly different way. So I can say, whatever the persona is, make this viewable for an operations manager or a ward manager, whatever it may be. And those contextual views, we can have different variations of the product based on user, which we had never spoken about before. And we're only just at the beginning of that, of understanding the breadth of that.
I think just taking the last one first, what was interesting for me as a CTO is that we had to invest quite heavily in synthetic data, because you can't just take actual patient records and actual health system operational workflow data and throw it at Miro AI and say, what do you think? So we had to invest really heavily in creating realistic, simulated, synthetic data for the Miro tools to work with. And that was a kind of non-trivial process. The other thing, just thinking about the battle cards, is just as Keira says, I'm often on kind of, certainly for us, reasonably high stakes pitches quite late on in the sales process. And one of the things that I've noticed is we don't compete on feature so much. What happened when we looked at some of these battle cards is that we saw and we felt much more comfortable with the fact that we work in the OR, and a lot of our competitors want to get into the OR, but they're actually on wards. And they're looking at different things. They're looking at things like patient falls and that sort of thing. And it was quite an interesting process, because we use very similar technologies. We use computer vision in a healthcare setting, but we're looking at very, very different things. And I think one of the things that we found since those competitor battle cards is that we are more confident in the role of our product, which is very much OR-centered, and we're okay with competitors going off. And I think that was also one of the trade-offs we made quite early, which was we were going to go deep into the OR. We are founder-led still, and our founder is a surgeon, and the OR is where our kind of culture and our core competencies are. And yes, upstream and downstream is really important, and we look a little bit into things like anesthetic rooms and into recovery, but we don't go yet all the way to the ward or all the way to, for example, outpatients and discharge. So they were some of the other learnings that we got as well. So I guess to wrap up, because we've got some fairly senior people, sorry, is this my microphone? Is that better? Yeah. We've got some fairly senior people from Miro in the room, I understand. So now's our time to be slightly mischievous and say, if you could ask for any feature of Miro, what would you ask for? And I'm sure that they will deliver it in the next 6 months.
I was going to say branding, but Brie already said that earlier. So the battle cards that we were producing, as we say, Miro allows us to have this one version of the truth around the battle cards, the documentation. I'm sure everyone uses it in the same way. There's no different boards. There's no different version of documents. It's always just one version of the truth. And having our Proximie branding on that makes it instantly an externally facing document. Whereas before, you know, we'd have to bring it somewhere else. We'd have to get the marketing person to make sure it's okay, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas now, if we can bring the brand in, that cuts all of that out. Again, you're saving time. So, well, Brie already said that she was going to deliver that, so we have that.
Well, Andre was at the rehearsal yesterday, so I'm sure that was it. Yeah. So, I think from my side, some of those AI tools are really exciting. I'm really excited. We do a lot of work, particularly with Claude and Claude Code and Anthropic. I think the paint may still be drying on some of those tools, but certainly that closer integration with some of the agentic workflows is really promising, I think, and offers an opportunity for particularly engineers to start sharing a little bit more around what they've done. And I'm hoping that what we see is a kind of receding of the ta-da moment where here's what I did with my AI. Look how valuable I am as an engineer. I can use it really. Please, you know, use it. And I think we'll see some of that collaboration start to develop a little bit more naturally. So I think we're just starting to come to the end now. I think we'll probably wrap up there. Great. So thank you so much for your time and attention. We're going to be around for a little bit afterwards if anyone wants to ask us any questions or say hello. Otherwise, it's been a real pleasure being on stage with Miro. Thank you to the whole Miro team. It's been a fabulous event and really enjoyed being part of it. So if you're around and want to say hello afterwards, please do. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure being here, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, everybody.